Welcome to Spirit Matters, everyone. Grand Rising or good morning. I am here with my co-host Dayal Garanga and with a beautiful live studio audience. This is your daily Bhakti Center podcast where we talk about spiritual subject matters and learn how to bring them into our daily lived realities. Dayal, how are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. Um, got a special announcement this morning. Wanted to invite you guys. We've been sharing about it this week and previously. Next week, next Friday, we're going to Sicily, Italy, Europe, yoga and kirtan retreat. If you're not coming, cancel your plans. Come with us. Sign up. Send us an email, info@bhakticenter.org, or just go to bhakticenter.org website. It's at the top there. You can check it out. It's 1 week in Sicily, and we haven't been on a retreat for a little while, and we're excited about this one. We planned this retreat years ago, before the pandemic. It's gotten rolled over. We have people who are signed up that signed up like 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and they've just been waiting. Um, and there'll be yoga, there'll be kirtan, there'll be dharma talks, there'll be time on the beach, there'll be visits to nearby historic sites and beautiful towns. There's going to be an Italian cooking class. There'll be meals prepared fresh every day. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful experience. We would love to have you. You can email us at info@bhakticenter.org, or just go to bhakticenter.org and check out the webpage and get your spot. There's a few spots left. It's coming soon. If you need me to call or talk to your boss or write a note, I will do so to get you time off from work. Whatever we need, we'd love to have you. All right, that's it. That's my plug.
That's your plug.
My plug.
That was a good plug. You're good at it.
I'm a plugger.
You're a plugger. But how are you?
I don't know anymore. I just make plugs. I've forgotten my feelings. Um, I'm doing all right. I missed kirtan last night because I came home early. I needed to catch up on a little rest, but otherwise I've been doing good. How
Mm,
about you?
I'm doing great. I went to Kirtan last night because I hadn't gone in a while. Um, and I stayed the whole time, which is rare for me. Sometimes I like to sneak out right before the Kirtan ends to avoid staying like an extra half an hour just so that I can get home and sleep. But I stayed last night and I socialized. It was really, really sweet. Like it was really nice connecting with people and talking. And some people that were there that are coming to Sicily. Some people were there that have been to our past retreats in India and Greece or wherever. So it was really nice just connecting with people. Yeah. And it was very refreshing.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm glad to hear that. It's wonderful. Good
So
peoples.
we're today's our last day of preparation until we start reading the Gita next week.
Yeah, we're gonna start reading the Gita next week. If you didn't pick up on that thus far, we wanted to sort of anchor our discussion and podcast in spiritual literature. There's something powerful about spiritual discussion, and there's also something powerful about centering it or anchoring it around spiritual literature. Um, there's an understanding in yoga practices, in bhakti yoga, in spirituality itself, that um, there are certain, what we associate with and what we surround ourselves with has a big influence on us. We know that the people that we surround ourselves with, the music we surround ourselves with. I've been listening to the song Gyra a lot. You remember I referenced that song Gyra a couple sessions ago? I was going to send it to you guys. It's this beautiful like gospel music sound. I found the song from Jonavi because she posts Maverick City music sometimes on her stories. So I was listening to that in the shower this morning because it has an effect on the consciousness.
Mhm.
And so similarly, there's an understanding that when we read spiritual literature, even if it feels, I think you were mentioning, Kishore, like one of the first times you read the Gita, it was like, this is like a little over my head, or there's a certain times where we read something and it may or may not resonate in an intellectual way all the times, but there's still a transformation that takes place because of just the association that we have with something. Like we're actually spending time with something sacred. Um, And so we wanted to give that to ourselves and to all of you, our listeners, every day, a little dose of the Bhagavad Gita, whether it be a verse or a section of the commentary or a couple of verses, depending on. So we're going to be introducing that next week. And this week has just been us. This week has been us sort of just kind of musing and pondering and reflecting upon our personal relationships with the Gita. And as we prepare to bring that into our discussions in our podcast next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for opening it up in that way, Dayal, because I think it's so important to prepare the consciousness and to prepare ourselves in the journey and to do it together. Because it's really, really, I was mentioning this yesterday and I was just reminded of this point that it's really important to do it together. Yesterday at the kirtan, there was a wonderful moment after the kirtan. One of a community member, she lives in Miami, and she came to the retreat with Janavi in Puerto Rico, and she was just giving us a big hug, me and Jai Jagannath, and she was telling me about how like the podcast is her lifeline and how she like, listens every day, and like days that she misses episodes, she like catches up and all this stuff. And I told her, I was like, well, we're starting the Gita, And she was like, yeah, I know. And she was like, I'm really, really excited to brush up on the Gita because it's been a long time since I read it. And it's been a long time since I read it, like not by myself. And she's like, she was just sharing her experience about how like not living near a community or not being so involved in a community, how important it is to be able to like approach these spiritual texts and not alone, like with people. And I think that that's really important because it brings us on a similar like vibration or energy, that energy of higher learning, of sincerity, of wanting to like really dig deep into these truths and see what is going on, what is Krishna trying to tell us. I also had another interesting experience last night, just talking to different people. It's really nice when you talk to people.
By the way, we love you, Andrea. We're glad that you're listening.
Yes, we love you, Andrea.
Come to Sicily.
Yes, come to Sicily. Well, she might she might go to Puerto Rico again with Genevieve. So
She should.
She absolutely should. It's really nice talking to people. Sometimes I get like close my little box of like, I need to sleep. I need to get home by this time. I need to do like this. I need to wake up. But yeah, just talking to people is great. I was talking to another person yesterday, and he was telling me about how his experience, kind of just like moving away from a certain group of friends and coming into a different group of friends. And his old group of friends being more, just like party and crazy and a little chaotic, and him himself realizing like that's not something that he needs in his life anymore. And I was asking him how he was, and he was like, yeah, I went out with them, and he was like, I just realized like that's not me anymore, and that's not what I need in my life anymore, and that's not what I'm looking for anymore, and those aren't the things that are nourishing me anymore. And it's like, all power to them, keep the party going, but like I just felt he's like, I felt like an alien. I felt out of place. And he was like, and I realized, and he was telling me and Jaya, he was like, I realized I just need to come to kirtan. He's like, I just need to be here with all of you. And we were like, yes, it's a nice idea. You should do that. And it was just really reminding me of like, once you've kind of like turned the corner and you're like, I want to know the deeper things. Like I want to go into those deeper truths. It's really hard to do it alone. It's really hard to do it without a support group of people that are doing it with you. And if you're trying to like function in the same either mental circles or social, whatever circles, right? If you're trying to function in the same circles while looking for these deeper truths, there's almost going to be this like schism. And it's like, it's kind of really necessary for you to like take that next big step and go and be like, yes, I'm going with this podcast or with this group of people or whatever. Like I'm diving into this, wholeheartedly and sincerely. And, I'll end here. I think part of the reason why when I first read the Gita when I was 21, and one, it went over my head, and two, it was like a little too like intense for me coming from religion and all that stuff. And I think the reason was because I read by myself. I read it by myself, completely by myself, and I read it in a very like philosophy, sociological mood, almost like an examiner. I wasn't really sincere. I was kind of just like, what is this saying? And so it's really, really important, I think, to do it with a group of people. Martha says, when I open this blessed book, it feels more like the book is opening to me and inviting me in. Beautiful.
Yeah. I wanted to pull back a little bit, a few of the comments here. Dana, when we were talking about what, associating with spiritual things that uplift us, and Dana said, "Don't let your ear holes be like snake holes." And I was like, "That's a good one, Dana." And then everyone's like, "I don't get it." And I was like, Kimberly was like, "I don't get it." And I was like, "Oh, that's just Kimberly. She doesn't get anything." And I'm just joking. And then Pasha was like, "Me neither." And Sydney's like, "I don't get it." I was like, "Oh, don't get it." So I wanted to pause on that because I thought it was a really good point. Um, do you know what that means, Kishore? Don't let your ears be like snake holes.
Yeah, I've heard.
Heard what it, maybe expound on it for us.
You expound on it for us.
Okay, I'm gonna expound. Um, we have this phrase, "You are what you eat," right? You are what you eat. Which is that, which is literally like you are what you eat. Your body's physically made up of the things that you put inside of it. Um, but the same applies to our consciousness, and that we Pasha's like, we're from the Pacific Northwest, y'all. What are snake holes? I would think anybody who says y'all knows what a snake hole is, but I'm not sure. Um, for those listening, we're reading off of our lovely chatters here in our live Zoom audience. And so we are what we eat. We are what we consume, and we consume through all of our senses: what we see, what we hear, what we taste and eat, what we touch, and what we smell. And the yogic lifestyle is not just about um, when you look at the process of yoga as outlined by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, the idea of asana being one sliver of that, so much of it is about how you go about consuming things in your life and setting up guardrails and being intentional, not just to like, it's not just a path of detachment and separating yourself from everything, but it's also intentionally inviting in the things that lift me up. I think we mentioned earlier, I mentioned somewhere, ever say something you're not sure where you said it? I think it might have been in this podcast, that the mind is always absorbed in something. And so it's a question of, what do I want my mind to be absorbed in? And so we have to be very careful what we let in through our consciousness, and therefore the foods that we eat, the music that we listen to, the things that we allow ourselves to hear. Ever listen to, like, whenever you listen to gossip, or whenever you listen to like just a conversation, it's juicy in the moment, and then you leave and just like feel dirty.
Mm.
I feel like I need to, like, I gotta like how do I get that out? Like I feel low. I feel like I just crawled through the mud,
Mm.
you know? Just like the way you would after you eat a bag of potato chips for dinner. Not as if I know how that feels like, but I just imagining. Um, and so, not letting your ear holes be like snake holes. It's like not just leaving this open space for anything and everything to just slither into my mind and my consciousness. And so to be very, very conscious about what I let in through my ears, what I let in through my sight, what I let into my mouth, and what I taste and what I eat. Um, and so the idea of just being very conscious about what we consume,
Mm.
not just in terms of our physical health and our diet, but my mind and my consciousness.
Mm. Dana is really sending us on a path today. Now she's saying like Dr. Emoto's water studies. Do you know what that is, Doyle?
Yeah, the hidden messages of water.
Yes.
Yeah.
So crazy.
That you would, he put these water molecules under a microscope, and he would like say or even write loving words to them, and then like our negative hateful words, and it would like molecularly change the structure of the water accordingly to like beautiful, images, or like uh contorted, images, etc., accordingly.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think Bhagavad Gita is really kind of fascinating because if you think about it, the entire time Krishna is talking to Arjuna, you know, and Arjuna is completely focused on what Krishna is telling him. And just that is like kind of a miracle in itself. It's like, oh, one person is talking to another person and that's it. It's like, think about our modern day where we're letting ourselves be influenced. I'm like, all the noise that's coming in. Well, this person said this and that person said this and the news said this and my social media said this and my parents said this and pop pop pop, and it just, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I think something so special about Bhagavad Gita is that it really helps us find that internal voice that's coming from a higher place, those hidden messages from God, from Krishna, and how to decipher them, and how to know that there is something more than just like, well, this person told me this, so I believe it. So much of society runs kind of on that structure, and it sometimes gets a little scary. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast of just, social issues and social movements and social this and social that. And we try not to get into that kind of stuff too much because it can go, really, it could just get a lot. But I think what's really interesting is that if you just look at modern day, if you just like look at our society right now, it's a bunch of people on one side yelling to like listen, like you have to listen to what we have to say. Like we're right. And then yeah, it's a bunch of other people on a different side. No, you have to listen to what we have to say. We're right. And then you have a bunch of people over there and you have a bunch of people over there. And so if you think about it, the common lay person is just like being like submerged with all of these different opinions and things and etc. and all of this stuff. And it's really difficult to even know what to listen to or block out or etc. And so Bhagavad Gita is so powerful. It's like God is talking to Arjuna. That's it, and we are our witness. When we read it, we're witness to that. Beautiful, Dana. Cut out the static. We need to silence the noise before we go spiritually deaf. Martha, that is beautiful and amazing. Gorgeous.
Dana wrote also earlier up above, she was referencing this ear holes and snake holes. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead, and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord, is be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of a snake, and a tongue like the tongue of a frog. It's an interesting analogy because it's not just like they're not just like second graders like making noise like you got a tongue of a frog and ears like a snake, like you're just like making fun of somebody and calling them ugly or something. But it's actually it's very metaphorical and intentional. Like the idea of having holes like the holes of a snake means like you're creating space for something that's going to poison you, that will ultimately destroy you. And the tongue of a frog in this context, it's mentioning that the frog makes a certain noise that attracts its own predators.
Mm.
And so, when we're speaking in a way and using the incredible power of our speech, um, the incredible gift, the power of voice, in a way that is destructive, we're actually, we invite the people around us according to the standards that we set of how we live.
Mm.
You set a certain high bar standard of the conversations that you have and the way you live, you're going to attract people of the same way. And what's going to happen to people on a lower vibrancy and a lower frequency? They're not going to want to be around that because you've set that bar high. And we get so scared to do that sometimes because what if people walk away? What if some people need to walk away?
Mm.
Because I want to vibrate on this level. And when I speak at a certain frequency, when I speak in a certain way, I'm going to attract people who speak and want conversations of a similar level.
Mm.
And when we are using our speech and our words in a low manner, it actually invites the predators. The way
Mm.
that a frog just kind of croaking invites its own predators, which ultimately lead to our downfall. So when we think about it on a spiritual level, I'm trying to progress and I want to set myself up for spiritual success. We the power of speaking and hearing is so incredibly important. I mean, it's referring to those two things there.
It's so interesting because this analogy is so wonderful because it's like energy is such a crazy thing. It's like even beyond speech, or not beyond, even like more subtle than speech, just the thoughts. Like just our thoughts are inviting or not inviting people. Something really funny happened recently. Um, so a friend of mine is like having a romantic interest, and I guess it's like his first time having a romantic interest ever. And so it's quite like new to him and unskilled. Like he just doesn't like know whatever. And he was telling me how like all these other people all of a sudden are now like messaging him and all of this stuff and whatever. And I immediately was just like, oh yeah, that happens. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, they can just feel it. He's like, what do you mean they can just feel it? I was like, once you come slightly off the market and you have a romantic interest, whether you've announced it or not, it's like a energy that just goes out into the world. He's like, that's not possible. I was like, no, trust me. And then like a few days later, he was like, your theory is right. Everyone is like coming after me and everyone's sliding into my DMs and everyone's messaging me. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's just like this really subtle energy. And it's crazy because it's like, that's just what's going on in your mind and your heart, let alone what we're speaking and what we're like saying to people and how we're communicating to people. That's going to attract or dive us into situations that we want or don't want even more, you know?
I mean, there's not like a database somewhere that everyone's checking like the stock market. So and so came off the market. Oh my God, I'm watching the updates like a CNN across the banner. Like so and so is off the market. Message them really quick. His stock is going up. It's not like
There's
a.
that.
There's just like an. You're just eating your oatmeal for breakfast, and all of a sudden it's like,
It
ding,
is. It's like a sonar. It's like, poof.
sonar. I feel like I want to be in a relationship with so and so.
Yes, that's what it's like.
Oh
Okay.
goodness.
Well, we are running fresh out of time, folks. Please, if you have any takeaways, write them in the chat. Dana says relationship with Krishna. Yes, first and foremost, but we will hand it over to Kimberly, our expert taker aware. Kimberly, what you got for us today?
Thank you. So we're walking away to not let our ear holes be like snake holes, being conscious about what we consume and say, and inviting more things in that lift us up. And then I'm just grateful for this community and association to discuss all these spiritual topics with too. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Dayal, what are you walking away with today?
Don't let my ear holes be like snake holes.
I'm on that same takeaway. Don't let my ear holes be like snake holes. That's the one. What's going on?
Don't let people know you're off the market.
Don't even think it.
Don't even think it.
Tasha says my takeaway is I need to move to New York so I can attend Thursday night
Of
kirtan.
course.
Yes,
You
yes,
need to move to New York and lead our social outreach efforts to connect with the people of New York and bring bhakti into to everyone.
done,
To
done.
use your skills, your backgrounds, your talents.
Andrea was also telling me this last night. She was like, if I was in a different part in my life, I would just move here to New York so that I could be at every single kirtan. I was like, why? Well, you could just move. She was like, yeah, maybe I could. So everyone should just move to New York and come to the Bhakti Center. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kimberly and Martha, Sydney, Lexi, and Dana, and Lane, Rachna and Pasha, Irenka in Washington Square Park, Anna and Rini. Thank you, Doyal. We will be taking a break over the weekend, and then we will be back on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you then. Bye, folks.